Hello, everybody. This is Jersey Joe of the Heads Up Hockey Podcast. Sports are coming back, and only SportsBetMVP.ag has all the perks you're going to look for. A 125% sign on bonus, $25 risk free bet, and daily payouts. The promo code for the podcast is SOCIAL, SOCIAL. And thank you for supporting the Heads Up Hockey Podcast. Hello, everybody. We have Jake Wakely on. How is everything, Jake?
I'm good, Jersey Joe. How are you, buddy?
Doing good. So you're going to bring on your special friend and big Habs fan.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of knowing this guy for, almost 15 years. We met first day of high school and whatnot, and we found out that we both liked, obviously, the Bills and stuff like that, but, big hockey fan. Probably the biggest Montreal Canadiens fan that I know. I'm still waiting on him to get in and accept the link. He probably still thinks we're starting here in about 10 minutes, so it might be 5-10 minutes before we get him on. But once we get him on, I'll give him a nice introduction. I know
I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, I know he's messaged me. He's been messaging me today. He's made some notes. He's asked some questions. If there's questions he needs to do, I just kind of told him, write some notes down. We kind of do it on the fly. We'll spring some questions on you and whatnot. It also helps, I guess, in the situation maybe with what he's going to rant on about, the coach and stuff. You and I can kind of relate because we've had this guy coach our hockey team as well. And, once we get into it and he's ranting about it and with, guys who are potentially in his doghouse and, where they're playing in the lineup, I'm going to tell a half-decent funny story about, maybe with Johnny Madden and Claude Julien when Claude Julien was coaching in New Jersey. But we're going to let him rant and go on about the Montreal Canadiens for a little bit, and we're going to see and whatnot. So
we will have to throw a few bad habit puns in there because you warned me ahead of time that he's going to be a little explicit, if you want to say, but not. I want to see if he hits the Cam Jansen record.
Oh yeah.
It's okay if he gets off a little bit like a comedian, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, so we'll see. He's messaging me right now. He's asking about sound check and am I logged on before record and stuff like that. But I just told him that we're live right now. We're just kind of warming up a little bit before he gets on here.
We're passing the puck around.
We'll see how long I'm able to stay live here. I got about 55% battery, so I should be good for about 45, 50 minutes. So, which is good. The wife took the baby for a bit. She's talking to her mom and her dad, so that kind of keeps them occupied. And I got the hockey game on in the background, so. But we'll. I'm just waiting on him to get on here. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he gets through.
Hopefully he does get through. Speaking of getting through, let's hope some teams clinch the proper way. Of course, I'm talking about you, Columbus. You shouldn't have blown a 3-0 lead, half rear-ending in that game 4. Oh, God.
Yeah, what did Columbus miss? They missed, I think it was 2 empty netters or something.
One of the last one missed by 2 inches, and 2 inches can cost you a series.
Yeah, and you know what? Columbus is up 1-0 right now, but if they end up going up 2-0 or 3-0, if I'm the Leafs, I'm sitting there thinking, well, geez, the way the last 2 games went prior to tonight, I got you right where I want you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's basically, the Blue Jackets basically ridden their coattails, and they didn't play like the Montreal Canadiens did, playing, constant 60-minute game, except, their goaltender and Carey Price bailed them out every single time. Just absolute consistency is the name of the game. And if you're not consistent enough, like unfortunate, like our team was early in the season, that's gonna kill you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Montreal has a shot to take down Philadelphia, but we'll get into that a bit more once he gets on.
I was gonna say, where is he at now? Did he get the copy paste, go to Safari, paste and go?
Yeah, I think so. He's having some issues with his to connect from his browser that he's using, so he's just changing the settings, so he shouldn't be too long.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering what the heck could be going on. Sometimes you just never know.
Okay, so yeah, he shouldn't be too long. Once he gets in, I'll give him a big introduction.
All right.
And no, it's not, for anybody listening, it's not the guy who played for the Leafs and the Ottawa Senators. Because I guarantee you if it was, he'd probably request a trade. But anyway, without further ado, this episode is pretty big for me because I've gotten into the podcast here in the past couple months and stuff. And, I've talked hockey. Him and I have been friends for, 13, 15 years. And this guy loves the Habs. Biggest Habs fan I know. Bleeds Blues, Blanc, et Rouge. Nobody else. Without further ado, Connor, how you doing, buddy?
Good, bud. How are you doing? How you guys doing today?
Hey, Connor, welcome on, Brownies.
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me on, man. I feel like we haven't tweeted at each other.
You're welcome anytime. You can message me anytime. I'm just always scouring Twitter for extra content and just examining many things. But Jake wants to dive right into it, so.
Yeah, all right, buddy. So we're going to give you the floor, and we're going to let you rant, swear, do whatever you got to do. Take it away. You can rant all you want about Claude Julien, where he's playing guys, and about the Habs and whatnot. So, I mean, you can start with their playoff series win against Pittsburgh if you want, but we'll let you dive into her. So the floor is yours.
It'd be lovely.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks again for having me on, boys. I really appreciate it.
Anytime.
Literally any time to talk about hockey and Habs and anything, I love it. I just want to say, Joe, and I hope you're staying safe with all the crazy stuff going on right now.
Oh God!
I know the state of New York's a little tough, and
New
you're
Jersey
out,
technically. I'm in Jersey.
Oh, true. Yeah,
not
sorry.
New York.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the Giants and the Jets for some reason, right?
Let me kind of throw that in there. So those guys play in the Meadowlands, and they just have two different owners that just love New York and live by New York, but they pay New Jersey state taxes because it's cheaper than New York City.
Yeah, well, the only team in New York is the Buffalo Bills. So.
Yeah, that's the only true team that plays in New York. That is the Buffalo Bills and the New York Yankees, Islanders, whatever. But the Rangers are barely in New York.
Yeah, they're just over the bridge, right?
Yeah, they're in Manhattan.
They're right over.
Yeah. Well, I could talk about the Bills all night too, so I won't get too much into that. So I'll dive right into the Habs.
Yeah.
I gotta say that. I listened to your last podcast, and Jake had it right when he said the hockey is quite good compared to what I think a lot of fans were thinking going into fanless arena. The hockey is playoff atmosphere. It's up tempo. It's fast. It's emotional. It was a lot of fun to watch the Habs take down Crosby and Geno Malkin. I think before I start ranting on Claude Julien, I think you have to give him credit where credit's due. Halfway through the series, he promoted Nick Suzuki and Jesperi Kotkaniemi to the top two lines and forming quite a good third line shutdown trio of Byron and Lehkonen. So I got to give him credit on that. I'll be positive before getting into the Domi and tailing quirks I got to deal with. But right from puck drop, you see Claude Julien's changes and charges look entirely different from how this series started. They seem pretty content with trying to get a 1-0 lead and then bottling up the Pittsburgh rushes. Obviously, we know the series came right down to Carey Price versus Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. I think everyone knew going into that it would have to be Carey Price kind of taking control of the series and being the Carey Price that we know he can be. I must say this is the best I've seen Carey Price since his Vezina and Hart Trophy season. I haven't seen him play this good in the playoffs probably since 2014. I guess this is probably only his second series since 2014, but still. But you can tell Carey Price that he's in it and he's engaged, he's rested, and I think that's scary to a lot of teams, especially the way the Montreal Canadiens defense and two-way forwards locked down Crosby and Malkin the way they did. I think Crosby only had 2 or 3 points. Malkin only had 1 point. I think he's -4 on the whole series. So I think a lot of teams are a little worried. Carey Price had a .947 save percentage, .960 at even strength, which is very impressive. The Habs have always been a pretty strong 5-on-5 team. It's special teams that really kill them. The power play is infuriating to watch. I almost rather be shorthanded than be on the power play.
So it's an understatement.
That is an understatement. You know, when you have Jordan Wheel on your second unit, it's pretty tough to watch. You know, the 5-on-5 team is kind of where the Habs play their best hockey. And they really shut down, they slow the game down, which I know a lot of fans don't like, but I know you New Jersey fans can appreciate the trap system of hockey. It's boring. It works. It gets you the dub, and that's kind of what matters. And that's what the Habs did the last few games. It's a good boring, correct? And you know, and I think that's the way the Habs would have to be to win this. There's no game breakers. I know Jake and I were talking the other night. The way the Habs win is they have 4 lines that can roll. They just chip away. No one's gonna blow their socks off. No one's gonna break the game wide open. You know, their best player would be probably this season Tomas Tatar, which says a lot. I think. I mean, I love Tatar, but he's not gonna break your game open. As you can see, our top scorers had no goals this series. You know, besides Drouin, who's been a bit of a disappointment, but you kind of expect Gallagher, Tatar, Domi, those kind of guys to start scoring, and they're not. So defense is going to be what really carries this team going forward. It's going to be interesting because the Flyers are a pretty great two-way team, I think. They're a juggernaut two-way team. I mean, they know how to score. They got Claude Giroux. They got Voracek. But their whole defensive system is amazing. And you got Sean Couturier, who I think arguably is probably the top two-way center in the game, playing there. And it's going to be a great defensive battle. You know, for the Pittsburgh series, the defense really led the way. There's 10 points coming from the defensive core, which is kind of allowing the Habs top forwards to find their legs. But like I said, we're going to need players like Domi, Drouin, Gallagher, Tatar to start contributing offensively to have any sort of success. And so the Domi situation, it's pretty mind-boggling that the only 70-plus player on the Habs by a long shot is Max Domi. He was third this season in points. He's arguably the most dynamic forward on the team, and he's playing on a line with Dale Weiss and Belzile. And credit to Weiss and Belzile, but you watch the game, and he's just too fast for them. Every rush, he's 10 feet ahead of them, looks for an open man, and they're still way behind the play. And even if he is able to get them the puck, they chip it into the corner, and that's the end of the play. So I don't know how anybody can expect Domi to start contributing offensively when he's playing with two players who should probably not be in the NHL. I mean, I know Habs fans love Dale Weiss, the Dutch Gretzky, but he has no business playing on an NHL team, let alone a line with Max Domi. This isn't the Dale Weiss of 2014. He's had one game this series that averaged over 10 minutes of ice time. He's averaging about 7 minutes. So at this point, he's just taking up space from a player who could be Ryan Poehling or Charles Hudon, who can keep up with Domi and maybe contribute a little bit offensively, while as not, being a liability on the ice, which I think is important in the Montreal system. So it's pretty disappointing to see those two players on the ice instead of younger, faster, more talented, skilled players. I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about the Habs and that line?
I actually got an interesting question. Like you and I were talking about it there the other night. How Montreal, how they beat teams. Well, besides Carey Price is, I still think Carey Price is probably the best goalie in the NHL, probably after Vasilevsky. I think he's proving again in the playoffs this year that he's the Carey Price that everybody expects him to be. And I think Philly looks really good, but I think Philly's beatable. Like, if you grind away at Philly and you play, not so much into their style of game, but you chip away at them, I don't think Philly's defense is maybe as good as people make it out to be. After Provorov and Gothisbehere, I'm not a big Travis Sanheim fan. I think he's overrated. They have guys on their defense that I think are beatable. And I think with the way, I think Montreal matches up better against them defensively than most people are going to think. Because if you look at the way Ben Sherratt's played this playoffs, he's played outstanding.
He's been a monster. A very underrated signing by Mark Bergevin last summer. I know Bergevin took a lot of slack for that. It's a West player out in Winnipeg. No one really knows a lot about. But Sherratt anchoring that left side with Shea Weber it's arguably, it's not arguably, it is the top pairing on the team outside of Jeff Petrie and Brett Kulak. But I totally agree with you, Jake. They're a very beatable team. In fact, the last 5 meetings between the two teams, Montreal hasn't lost in regulation. They've outscored them 17-10. They're a very beatable team, but I think this series is really going to come down to Carter Hart versus Carey Price. I think that's the biggest storyline in this series. Carter Hart, I think, is probably the best up-and-coming young netminder in the league. He had a 1 goals against average. He allowed 3 goals in 3 games against offensive juggernauts, Boston, Washington, and Tampa. The kid looks confident. He's looking to solidify his position as a top young netminder. What better way to do it than play against his hero and the just as hot Carey Price? I think that's what it's going to come down to, is those two.
I will throw this in there on the Flyers. One of the things you want to know about the Flyers is they love to play dirty. You don't want to play a dirty game with the Flyers. You want to play a different style of dirty. Get the puck into their back of the net. Get in the corners. Move the puck rather quickly yet smoothly up into high-scoring chances, meaning, someone like Duran can make a nice pass to, let's say, someone like a Suzuki right at the top of the slot and just banks it in, and you cause a lot of confusion and chaos around Carter Hart's defense. I like the shot Shea Weber still brings to this day, even though he's 34 years old. Petrie had a really good snipe the other night in that big win over Pittsburgh right off the goaltender's helmet. And I thought it was a really great attempt. And Karl Osner has really played a great series so far for a veteran. And he's experienced this from his days with the Capitals. And knowing what it takes
Hang on, Joe. Hang on.
Yeah.
Karl Osner is not playing, buddy.
He opted out.
Oh, never mind. Well, I'm looking at Cap Friendly, but
yeah, it's okay.
But
no, you're probably thinking of Sherratt. Sherratt,
Yeah.
The veteran that's been playing well.
Thanks for reminding me. And Victor Mete is starting to butt into his own. I'm starting to see that.
Yeah, and it's kind of tough that he's playing with a defensive liability in Xavier Ouellette. I I'd rather have Noah Juleson in there, to be honest. I know he's been hurt a lot, but the Noah Juleson's a 23-year-old first round defenseman. I think he still has the talent. When he came on at the end of the year in Laval, he was playing very well. It kind of sucks to see Met being kind of left in the dust and all on his own half the time, because Xavier Ouellette is kind of forechecking and pinching when he shouldn't be. But you're right, Mete has looked excellent. The fact that he's basically doing 2-on-1s all game. It's but yeah, it's kind of tough when you kind of trade your pieces at the deadline. Our depth isn't as good as it once was. Marco Scandella would usually be playing in Ouellette's spot, which I'm not a huge fan of Scandella, but he was just handed a big contract by St. Louis. We carded a second-round pick for him, so I'm not going to give any snuff on that, but he's a serviceable or a third-pairing defenseman, so it's kind of hard for Met to kind of invest that way.
And I think Montreal, and I think you're looking at it because at the deadline, most of these teams, they didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. Like Montreal was probably looking mostly at the draft in the offseason, like and what improvements they could have made to their team. But I think Montreal did well enough scoring-wise against Pittsburgh. Like obviously they beat them, but you're probably sitting there as a Habs fan right now going, man, even though he's older, it would be really nice to have Kovalchuk right now on the team.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. But you know what, Claude Julien probably have him on the fourth line anyway.
All right.
That wouldn't do him any good.
I see where we're leading here now. I think I'm gonna start with a question.
Sure.
Why in the world is Ryan Poehling scratched? Why did Montreal select him 25th or whatever it was in 2017 in the first round? And now he's been basically benched and, dinkered around by the Montreal organization. And, I understand Drouin's been hurt. And, you and I were talking about it. He's basically an Alex Kovalev 2.0. Like, he shows up when he wants to, and then he disappears for a while. But when he's on, he's arguably, you can make an argument, he's one of the best. Like, his skating is so smooth, but he makes plays when he's on, but when he wants to. But the one that I don't get, the one I really don't get is why Max Domi is, barely seeing any ice time. He had 72 points, I think it was, last year, and then he was well on his way. It was a bit of a struggle this year for him, but he started to pick it up in the second half once Kovalchuk came to Montreal, and then now all of a sudden come playoff time, you're putting your best player on the fourth line. I just don't get it.
And you know what? Drouin and Domi, their best hockey was played on a line together, and instead you have Yoel Armia on the line, and I love Yoel Armia. I think he's a very underrated forward. He had 16 goals this year on an injury-shortened season. But why in the world would you not have two players obviously struggling in Domi and Drouin? Why would you not put them back together with Kotkaniemi down the middle as your second scoring line? It makes zero sense to me to have your only 70-plus point player on the fourth line. He's getting 12 minutes a game, and you have players like Yoel Armia is getting 20 minutes a game. It's even in games we're losing, we were down 3-1. You still have Yoel Armia getting most of the ice time over Domi, and then you add Domi onto the power play, and you double shift him with Deneau, you replace Deneau with him after a penalty kill, and you're moving him up and down the lineup. He's not being able to develop any consistency in his game. There's no chemistry with anyone in his game because he's just switching out line mates, putting them up and down. It's very infuriating to see Max Domi being treated this way. I honestly think he's leading to a trade this summer. I think Max Domi will be traded. That's kind of unfortunate. He's really grown into a fan favorite in Montreal. I mean, how can you not like Max Domi? He's a scorer with a bit of his dad's edge. He has that Domi family switch where all of a sudden he's mad and he's going to drop the gloves and kind of lose it on you. And you can see him on the ice when he's following Crosby up the ice. He's slashing him, cross-checking him. And I really think that took Crosby off his game. I know, Jake, you mentioned it the other night, that goal by Paul Byron in Game 2 to make it 3-2 in the game. Max Domi was slashing Crosby all the way up the ice, and that took Crosby and the defender away from the play and opened up Byron to score to get us back in the game, which I think was the TSN turning point of the series. If Pittsburgh had made it 4-1, we'd be going down 2-1, heading back to, I guess, Montreal or whatever, Toronto. And I think Max Domi is part of the TSN turning point for that series, was that play. You can see the talent, you see the skill, and I just think he's either in the doghouse or he's not in the Habs' future plans, which is pretty unfortunate.
I think it is unfortunate because, Byron was around the net, and then Domi stepped in front of Crosby and tied up his stick and kind of put him in a bit of a pick, and which caused Byron to score the goal. But it's little things like that where you reward your players with more ice time. But then, how frustrating has it got to be for Max Domi when he's skating up the ice, and he's halfway up the ice, hoping to, cause a breakout or a 3-on-2 or whatever, or a scoring chance. And he's looking up the ice, and he's looking to his left and his right, and he's going, well, where's my teammates? Oh, wait, Jordan Wheel and Dale Weiss are still back at our blue line.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And in the off chance he's able to connect with them in the offensive zone, they chip it into the corner, and that's the end of the play. You can't put skilled players on the fourth line with AHL talent. No offense to Dale Weiss or Belzile or Jordan Wheel, but this isn't. Dale Weiss has no business being in the NHL at this point in his career. I know Habs fans loved him in 2014. He was great in that playoff run when he was 26 and looking to make a name for himself. He's now in his 30s. He's slow. He can't keep up with the pace. Great teammate. He's there to defend his teammates. He's the first one in the handshake lines with his goalie after a win. I just think there's no place for him, especially in the playoffs. It just doesn't make sense. But I also think no matter who you put on that line, he's not getting enough ice time to develop any consistency. And I think your star players need to be getting 15 to 20 minutes a night to really consistently make an impact in a game and in a series.
And I want to touch on those two spots. Kotkaniemi's up playing in now the playoffs. You mentioned two possible names I think could be working would be Ryan Poehling, and then I'm just looking down the road, and you could easily have, let's see, I'm just trying to see what else I can see there.
They got Cole Caulfield coming in the wing.
Cole Caulfield would be coming up rather soon. So
yeah, I wanted to ask your opinion on that. I know the NCAA football is likely going to be canceled this year, and I was just wondering what you guys thought on how that'll affect the hockey. I know hockey technically isn't considered a fall sport, so they haven't made their decision on that. If the NCAA season gets canceled, what do you think will happen to players like Cole Caulfield and those kind of guys? Do you think they'll sign their contract early and come up, or
Joe, are they allowed to go over to Europe and stuff and play? Because I didn't know if the NCAA got canceled. I didn't know if they would just allow them to go play in the AHL to develop and stuff. But the AHL obviously we don't know if it's going to be playing and stuff. So yeah, wouldn't Europe be their only option?
Well, let's see this. Per NCAA.com, it says NCAA cancels remaining winter and spring championships due to coronavirus concerns. This was on May 7th. So this was written by, NCAA.com. And so it says on March 30th, the Division I Council voted to allow schools to provide spring sport student athletes with an additional season of competition and an extension of their eligibility period. Below is an excerpt from the decision statement. It says Division One rules limit student athletes to 4 seasons of competition in a 5-year period. The council's decision allows schools to self-apply waivers to restore one of those seasons of competition for student athletes who had completed eligible in the COVID-19 shortened 2020 spring. So this says the council will allow schools to self-apply a 1-year extension of eligibility for spring sports student athletes, extending each student's 5-year clock by a year. This decision was especially important for student athletes who had reached the end of their 5-year year clock on 2020 and saw their seasons end abruptly.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I mean, that makes sense with that kind of makes sense with football because these players aren't with an organization yet. Like they're building their stats and their game tape to be drafted. My only concern with that is saying like you can extend their stay in college. An NHL team who's committing into development is probably going to not want their prospect to be sitting around for a year, right? If that makes sense.
Yes, and of course they do have agents, and it's not like they don't have any representation. Like let's say Alan Walsh, for example, he represents player A and B, right? You want to have your clients A and B to go to whoever's organization close to their home. Let's just say there's a pro hockey league. Let's just say it's the ECHL or something. You want to get at least some sort of ice hockey in there, for these guys to develop. It'd be better than just sitting idle and not being able to play a college game. What do you do about the other guys? I think it could be doable if there's some sort of I know with the European players from Central Eastern Europe, they've gone to play in the Liga, and that's in Finland. They've gone to Belarus. They've gone to Russia, to just name a few things. So there might be Joe Thornton as an NHL guy. He's already gone to Switzerland to play in the NLA. So maybe there's something that allows the agents to vie for their players to play in a league that want to play, in this COVID shortened season.
Yeah, well, the NCAA would have to come up with some sort of opt-out because, if you're committed to a college hockey program, you're not even allowed to go to a professional training camp. We didn't see Ryan Paling in a Habs uniform for 2.5, 3 years because NCAA rules are if you're committed to our school, then you cannot be a professional athlete, which I think is bogus. I think that's the NCAA though. So that's what I mean. There has to be the agent. I guess would have to work out some sort of opt-out clause that they can. I guess they would just uncommit if they want to go to do a professional league. They could just uncommit from the program. I guess, right?
Yeah, and so if they're under a full year scholarship, they would have to give up that free ride and then eventually, get out of that old clause and join a new clause in a renewed contract. So with that being said, I think a guy like Ryan Paling or not Paling, I'm thinking of Cole Caulfield. So you just take him from, I believe, Wisconsin, and you just let him, let's say play in Liga or the SHL and develop a little bit in a bigger, better league where he can get more ice time.
Yeah, well, and I've also heard some rumblings about a tournament come September for AHL teams and players like Alex Romanov, Kirill Kaprizov. Am I saying that right?
Kirill Kaprizov, yes.
Kaprizov. For players like those guys who are practicing with the team but can't get any game time, there's rumors they're gonna have a tournament style. I guess a tournament in September for AHL teams to maybe get their legs and kind of train a bit before doing the December season. So I guess that would be an opportunity there for players like Cole Caulfield to maybe play in a tournament like that, and then maybe just coming up to the big club in January, because that's technically the next season, right?
Yeah, it sounds a lot like that. And you touch on a guy in Alexander Romanov. I noticed him because when he was playing for Russia, not only was I watching Askarov, I had to watch for the sake of Daniel Misule because he's on the Devils prospect pool. And I looked at Romanov. He looked very good, sounded defensively. His physical game is pretty good. He's well positioned as a defenseman, and he provides offense. What do you think of him as a Habs fan?
I absolutely love him. I remember when the Habs picked him, he was kind of a who is that guy kind of pick in the second round, and there were some really good players left on the board, and the Habs kind of went off and picked Romanov. And I've always been in love with those underdog type players. So as soon as he was picked, and fans and media were kind of making fun of the Habs in a way about that pick, I fell in love with him. And then his first World Junior, he stole the tournament. He was defensive MVP. He had, I think, 8 points in 5 games. He was lights out good. I believe I forget who it was, but former
8 points in 15 games played in the international junior.
Oh, he played 15 games? I didn't think he played that much in junior.
Well, actually, he played for CSKA Moscow, which is Moscow.
Correct.
He got 7 points in 43 games that season. Meanwhile, playing a lot of hockey in for the under 20 and international juniors. So
yeah,
probably burnt out.
Impressive for a defenseman. I think you guys know how hard it is for defensemen to develop and how long they take. And I thought it was pretty crazy that he was playing top minutes on the Gargarian Cup winning team at 19 years old in a professional, I think is the second best league in the world, and he was logging those types of minutes. I know a former NHL veteran who plays on that team said he's never seen a 19-year-old defenseman that strong on the ice with his legs, the way he can box players out, and the way he hits like a truck. It's quite impressive to see a 19-year-old kid step up on a 30-year-old man and knock him down pretty simply. I know there's a video going around social media about a week ago. His first practice with the Habs, he cranked a guy in practice. You just see that it's go, go, go all the time for him. And I think that's great to see in a young defenseman like that. I think he's a blue chip prospect. It's hard to predict how any defenseman is going to turn out, but I think worst case scenario is a top 4 defenseman. And I think that's pretty good for a second round pick. That the worst case right now is that he'll be a top 4 defenseman.
And I think I'm a big fan of him. Like, you're seeing a lot of scouting services ranking like up and coming prospects and stuff and whatnot. And even Craig Button has him I think it was like his 2nd to 5th best up and coming prospect. Like, I personally think Alex Romanov is a future Norris Trophy winning defenseman. If he hits his ceiling, I don't think there's anything stopping that guy from winning a Norris Trophy. He just does everything. And, with, Romanov and, Montreal, I think Montreal, Los Angeles, for Joe and I, it's a little hard to predict our system right now because, we have 2 young centers, obviously, to build around too. But for you guys, I think Montreal has one of the deepest prospect systems in the NHL, and I also think it's going to help them in the draft having, maybe Habs fans might have thought the draft probably would have been a better thing for us through this sort of retool and rebuild in the window with Carey Price and Shea Weber left. But at the same time, the playoff is great experience for the young guys. It helps them, see what they're getting into as they get adjusted to the game in the NHL, and it helps their development moving forward. But, obviously they have Cole Caulfield coming up too, who I think is just his goal-scoring ability is unreal. I think Montreal is going to be perfectly fine, moving forward. Even even after Carey Price, finally hangs him up whenever that is. I still think
And
Montreal.
they have a good goaltender from New Jersey.
Yeah, they have Caden Premu too. So Caden Premu, I think, is one of the best upcoming goaltenders and stuff. I think Montreal got him an absolute steal.
I love his goaltending.
Excellent.
Yeah, I was on the 7th round, and he's 7th round goalie, and he's been lights out since being drafted. He stole the job in college, and he ran with it. I think he won the goalie MVP in the NCAA. I think you're right, Jake, with Caden Primo being. I think he's obviously the future. Carey Price is 33; he's not getting any younger. And you mentioned about Habs fans thinking that having a 12% chance at Lafreniere this year would be better than winning a round. You try telling that to Carey Price or Shea Weber or Jeff Petrie, these veterans who want to win, they want to win now. You try telling them losing to get a 12% chance at 18-year-old. I don't think they're gonna want to do that. Obviously, having an opportunity to draft a French-Canadian star is enticing, but I think having a shot at the Stanley Cup is much more enticing. And you're right, with the Habs prospect pool, I don't think there's anything for Canadian fans to be worried about. And let's say we do swept by Philly. There's some great players available at the 16 to 20 range. Who I think is going to be a great defenseman. You got Jack Quinn from Ottawa, Braden Schneider from Brandon. I think either way, they're going to be happy with the outcome of this season, considering how poorly it was going. I know we brought up the Devils prospect pool a little bit there. What are you guys thinking for the draft? Is there a couple players you're thinking of? Like, for me, the Devils, I'd be if there's a way that you can kind of come away from those 3 picks with a Jake Sanderson or a Jamie Drysdale and Askarov, Devils fans should be very excited about any of those picks.
Yes, you mentioned Jamie Drysdale. If he's at 7, I am absolutely happy to know that he's there because I see the way he can just move the puck at ease. It's just, I know it's not Scott Niedermayer-like or Sergei Zubov-like, but it's almost like Heiskanen and Cale Makar style. The way he just makes it look so easy with less effort.
Oh yeah, his skating is so fluid. It's almost satisfying to watch him skate up the ice on the rush.
Yeah, I think Joe. I think you're right. Like I think for the Devils, not being able to get a second top 10 pick, they might be more enticed to take Jake Sanderson at 7. If Jamie Drysdale is there and there's still forwards available, depending on the forward, I think they're better off. New Jersey's better off taking a defenseman because they need help on defense in their system. PK Subban's not getting any younger. Damon Severson's kind of sort of hit his ceiling, what he can be, like a 30 to 40 point guy. But you need a defenseman back there that hits, the 50 to 60, 70 points. I don't see a reason why Drysdale can't hit that. But
I see realistically.
Like Connor said, though, New Jersey also doesn't really have to take the defenseman at 7. They can afford to wait until, the 18 to 20 range that the Arizona and the Vancouver pick, and they can still get, a Caden Gooley or a Braden Schneider or whatever, and, Jack Quinn if he falls. But you and I have said, many times on our podcast, the best thing for the Devils is probably hoping, I think Detroit most likely is going to take Perfetti at 4. Unless they don't, they might take Drysdale or Rossi. I don't see any other 3 players for them.
They could also be enticed with taking Lucas Raymond too, because they also have a history with Swedes.
Yeah,
so
they do.
I mean, it's a coin flip with either of those really good centers. But I think the one knock on Perfetti, if you're drafting Perfetti that high, is that you're going to move him as a winger, not a center. So I believe he's more of a winger long term than a center.
I agree with you there, Joe. I think Perfetti, no matter where he ends up, he's going to end up being a winger. kind of reminds me in a way. I think he's better than these players, but Max Domi or a Druin or a Galchenyuk, who they're drafted as centers and want to be a center, but they're better off as a winger. They just don't have the defensive skill set to be a center. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that he will end up being a winger, which I think would be also beneficial for the Devils getting a winger. You got your two stud centers, which arguably are the behind or before goalie is the hardest position to kind of firm up in a rebuild or retool. So having those two already set kind of gives you leeway to focus on an Askarov, or focus on a Jamie Drysdale, or focus on a Lucas Raymond or Alexander Holtz.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joe, you and I have talked about that. Do you think you and I kind of both think like unless if 7 rolls around and Rossi, Raymond, and Holtz are all on the board, you and I kind of think they might sway towards Rossi because it seems like the Devils have like half of the Ottawa 67's organization.
You mean the Ottawa Devils?
Yeah, basically, yeah. But you and I have both said before.
Devils.
You and I have both said before. We think if Raymond and Holtz are there, then we don't think the Devils can really go in a wrong direction there. I'd personally take Raymond over Holtz, but because I think he'll be the better all-around playmaker.
I agree.
But I also
takeaways.
I also think taking Holtz would benefit them very well, and it could complement Palmieri for the last couple of years of his career if he re-signs there, and you're adding the best sniper besides Jack Quinn in the draft. And I think that's what they need. They need snipers on the wings.
Sorry, go ahead.
You just said Jack Quinn, and he's obviously the second best shot in this draft. I do think if he is available and the Devils don't get Askarov, I believe you can get Quinn or you could get Jarvis at that point in the draft.
Is it not enticing for you guys? Because I know JT touched on it with PK Subban and Severson. And I'm a huge fan of Ty Smith. I know he trains with Brendan Gallagher in the summer. And say what you will about Milan Lucic, the guy's built like a truck. And he trains with Lucic, trains with Gallagher. I think he's going to be an excellent top 4 defenseman in this league. But you're right, the defense is kind of lacking in the prospect pool. So is it enticing to take a player like Jake Sanderson, or obviously Jamie Drysdale if he's there, and then taking a Jack Quinn who he could be gone by like 15 to 14. But if he's there when the Devils are picking with one of those Arizona or Vancouver picks, if you can get the draft with Jake Sanderson and Jack Quinn, I think that's pretty enticing, no?
Yeah, I believe if Sanderson does drop, to New Jersey's second pick in the draft, I do believe the Devils would have to take him because, a team like the Rangers would want to take a guy like him, knowing the defense that he brings, similar to a Ryan McDonough. But he's someone I think is a better skater than McDonough, but he's not a Cale Makar or a Perfetti type skater. So I go with the defense rating, but I do like Braden Schneider's physicality for the Vancouver pick if it gets a little bit further back.
Yeah. And Askarov is he's the best goaltending prospect I've seen since Carey Price. I know Craig Button said the same thing, so shout out to him. I think I heard him say it. I kind of trusted him. But in all seriousness, I've seen him play with in Russia and some of his highlights, and I think he is the best goaltending prospect since Carey Price. So having a chance and an opportunity to have someone like that is, especially with the Devils, you were treated for so long, and all props for Schneider, but the goaltending situation since that hasn't been what you would want it to be. So obviously Askarov is probably pretty enticing as well at any of those picks.
Yeah, I heard back from someone saying, "Oh, that's a stupid opinion you have about picking Askarov with a pick." And I said, you know what? We really need a really good goaltender who can challenge Blackwood game in and game out. We need 2 1As. And anytime I watch a Skarov, he always has a really good mind, similar to Price. He's playing the puck. This kid actually comes out of his crease and plays the puck carrier from the opposition. And how many times do you see that besides Johan Hedberg?
Absolutely.
But Joe, you and I were saying it last night, and I kind of got into it with the couple guys on our podcast.
Yeah.
And I've made it clear, and I will stand by it. I'm biased because I played the position, so I'm biased. But you don't win championships without great goaltending. I don't care how good your defense and your offense is. Your best penalty killer every single night is the guy wearing the pads between the pipes. If he's not on, then you're not having much success, and you don't win championships that way. You look back at the Habs all over the years, the 70s, those teams were loaded, but they also had Ken Dryden in net. And then when they won in 86 and 93, they also had arguably the greatest goalie ever in Patrick Roy. They might not have had the greatest offense in the 86 and, 93, but they had Patrick Roy. And Patrick Roy carried them even as a rookie and then in 93 to a championship. So, goaltending wins. It's pretty simple.
I'm a firm. Not only that a goaltender can steal a series, but I think they can steal a Stanley Cup. And like you said, 86 and 93, Patrick Roy essentially did that, especially with the 93 team. We saw Jarro Halak do it in 2010. Didn't steal a cup, but he stole an entire playoff. There's talk of him winning the Conn Smythe, even though he was eliminated in the conference final. That's how good he played. So I think you're right. Goaltending, without it, you're not winning. A goalie gets hot in the 2-3 months it takes to win a cup. They're usually going to win. Jordan Binnington last year, for instance, I don't think he's that good. He hasn't had a great year this year compared to what he was last year, but he got hot at the right time and he won a cup. And I think you're right. You're not winning a cup without great goaltending.
And Joe, before we wrap it up, should we just get a quick series predictions from all three of us on the Montreal Phillies series since we have Connor on?
I have the Habs winning in the best of 7. I would say Habs 4-2.
Yes, Joe. Woo!
I'll say stand a chance.
I'll say Montreal in 7. I think it goes 7. I think Carey Price steals the show, gets a shutout in Game 7.
Yeah, I think we're going to be witnessing a lot of 2-1, 3-2 games. I think this entire series is going to be Carter Hart versus Carey Price, which what a cool story with Carter Hart idolizing Pricer growing up. But I think the veteran and the experience ends up winning it, and I agree Montreal in 7, I think. I'm hoping. Obviously Montreal in 4 would be great, but I think Carter Hart's going to steal a few games, and I think we're going to see a lot of boring, low-scoring hockey, and I can't wait.
We all can't wait, and thank you for coming on and bringing your insight. It was wicked awesome. I just figured Jake brought on the right person at the right time.
That's what he's all about. It's great to be on. Anytime to talk hockey. As Jake said, we've been friends for 15 years, and that's what our friendship is based on, is sports, football and hockey. So without that, we're probably not friends.
It definitely plays a big part. It plays a big part in our friendship.
Yeah, no, that's all we talk about is sports, and so anytime I get a chance to talk with sports with new people, and it's always a pleasure. So thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on. Thank
you so much. This has been a great Heads Up Hockey podcast. Don't forget to use promo code SOCIAL, SportsBet, MVP.ag to support the podcast. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Jake.
You're welcome. Peace.
All right, boys.
See you guys.